My sister smirked. Your daughter will end up a nobody like you. Her husband chuckled. My daughter just nodded quiet. I sipped my coffee and said, funny. This nobody doesn't need to borrow rent money every month. My sister's face dropped. Then calmly I pulled out my phone. The Wednesday afternoon sun filtered through the cafe windows as I sat across from my sister Victoria and her husband Marcus at the Meridian, their favorite upscale coffee spot, where lattes cost $8 and the clientele discussed stock portfolios over artisanal pastries. My 12-year-old daughter Emma sat beside me, her eyes fixed on her sketchbook, while their 15-year-old son Tyler scrolled through his phone, occasionally showing his father expensive sneakers he wanted. Victoria had insisted on this meeting, texting me 3 times about important family discussions and how we never spend quality time together anymore. I'd agreed mostly because Emma rarely saw her cousin, and despite everything, I wanted her to have family connections. So Emma, Victoria began, her voice dripping with fake concern as she adjusted her designer sunglasses on top of her head. What are your plans for high school? I hope you're considering something practical. Not everyone can afford fancy private schools like Tyler attends. She said this while signaling the waiter for another refill of her specialty coffee. Emma looked up briefly, then back down at her drawing. I'm thinking about art programs, Aunt Victoria. Marcus snorted into his espresso. Art? That's adorable. Victoria, remember when your sister thought she could make it as a graphic designer? He gestured at me dismissively. Look how that turned out, working from home in her little apartment. Victoria touched his arm, laughing. Marcus, be nice. Though you're not wrong. I've been telling her for years that she needs to get a real office job. Benefits. Stability. You know, actual security for Emma. I took another sip of my coffee, letting them continue. Emma seems like a sweet girl, Victoria went on, but without proper guidance and resources she'll end up struggling just like her mother. It's not her fault. Some people just don't have the drive to succeed. Tyler looked up from his phone. Dad, can I get the new gaming system? Everyone at school has one. Of course, son, Marcus said proudly. We believe in giving our children the best opportunities. Right, Victoria? My sister nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. It's why we work so hard. Tyler attends Westbrook Academy, takes private tennis lessons, and has a tutor for SAT prep. We're investing in his future. He turned to Emma. Sweetheart, I know your mother does her best with what she has. But you should know that success requires more than just hope. It requires resources, connections, and the right schools. Emma's pencil stopped moving. I watched her shoulders tense slightly. Your daughter will end up a nobody like you, Victoria said, her smile sharp. No offense, of course. I'm just being realistic. Marcus chuckled, nodding in agreement. It's generational. Parents who succeed raise successful children. It's just how it works. Emma looked at me, her young face trying to stay neutral. She nodded quietly, accepting their assessment like she'd been trained to accept all of life's unfairness. I set down my coffee cup carefully. Funny, I said, my voice calm and even. This nobody doesn't need to borrow rent money every month. Victoria's smile froze. Marcus stopped mid-sip. What are you talking about? Victoria asked, her voice losing its condescending lilt. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app with deliberate slowness. The transfers. Every month for the past 18 months. Sometimes twice a month. Let's see. I scrolled through my transaction history, watching Victoria's expression shift from confusion to dawning horror. February, you needed $2,000 for rent. March, $3,500 for Marcus's car payment and your electric bill that had gone to collections. April, you borrowed $1,500 for Tyler's school trip that you'd already committed to. May, another $2,000 for rent, plus $800 for the BMW lease payment. That was temporary, Marcus interrupted, his face reddening, his hand gripping his coffee cup so tightly his knuckles went white. Business investments. Cash flow management. Every entrepreneur goes through this phase. Of course, I agreed pleasantly. Which is why you've paid back exactly $0 of the $48,000 you've borrowed. Tyler's eyes widened. He looked at his father, then his mother. Victoria laughed nervously. You said those were family loans. No rush to pay them back. You said family helps family. I did say that, I confirmed. And I meant it. I'm not asking for the money back. I'm just clarifying something for Emma's benefit, since we're discussing success and resources. I turned to my daughter. Emma, do you remember when Aunt Victoria called last Tuesday, the day before this coffee meeting? Emma nodded slowly. What did she need? She asked if you could help with their mortgage payment, Emma said quietly. She said the bank was calling. Victoria's face flushed. That's private family business. You're embarrassing us in front of the children. You just told my 12-year-old daughter she'd end up a nobody, I replied, my tone unchanged. In front of your son. In public. But discussing factual financial transactions is where we draw the privacy line. Marcus leaned forward. Listen, we're going through a temporary setback. My business expansion required capital. Once it takes off. Your business expansion, I repeated. The one you started 14 months ago? How much have you invested in it so far? Silence. Because I know how much you've borrowed from me for it. Roughly 22,000 of that 48. The rest was for basic living expenses. Rent, utilities, car payments, Tyler's school tuition. Tyler put his phone down completely, staring at his parents. We were going to pay you back, Victoria said, her voice small. I believe you intended to, I said. But that's not really the point of this conversation. The point is success, resources, and opportunities. You wanted to educate Emma about how the world works, so let me add some context. I turned to Emma. Sweetheart, your Aunt Victoria drives a BMW leased at $800 a month. They rent a 4-bedroom house in Riverside Estates for $4,000 monthly. Tyler's private school costs $32,000 a year. Marcus's business has overhead costs of about $6,000 monthly. Together, their lifestyle costs roughly $12,000 every month. Emma listened, her artist's mind clearly calculating. How much do they earn? She asked. That's inappropriate, Marcus snapped. Marcus earns about $4,500 monthly from his consulting work, I continued calmly. Victoria's boutique manager position pays $3,800. Together, they bring in roughly $8,300 a month to maintain a lifestyle that costs $12,000. That's private information, Victoria hissed. You asked me to co-sign Tyler's school loan last year, I reminded her. I saw all your financial documents. You made me your emergency contact at the bank. I have access to your account notifications because you needed help managing overdrafts. Tyler's face had gone pale. Dad, you told me we were rich. We are doing fine, Marcus said firmly. This is just creative financial management. I nodded. Creative financial management. That's one term for it. Another is living substantially beyond your means while borrowing from family members you publicly belittle. This is cruel, Victoria whispered. Why are you doing this? You told my daughter she'd end up a nobody, I said simply. I'm providing educational context, since we're apparently having teaching moments today. I looked at Emma. Your aunt and uncle have chosen to prioritize appearance over stability. There's nothing wrong with that choice, but it comes with consequences. The consequence is debt, stress, and dependency on people they claim to be superior to. And what about you? Marcus challenged. Living in your small apartment working from home? That's success. I own my apartment outright, I replied. I bought it 8 years ago. No mortgage. My freelance design business grossed $218,000 last year. After expenses and taxes, I netted about $142,000. My monthly costs, including everything Emma needs, run about $4,500. I save roughly $6,000 a month. Victoria's mouth opened. No sound came out. The thing is, I continued, I don't need to prove success through expensive cars or prestigious zip codes. I don't need to impress Tyler's classmates' parents or maintain appearances at country club events I can't afford. You never told me you made that much, Victoria said. You never asked. You assumed. You saw my modest apartment, my 10-year-old Honda, and my work-from-home schedule, and you created a narrative that made you feel better about borrowing money you couldn't pay back. Emma spoke up, her voice stronger now. Mom, is that why you never seem stressed about money? That's part of it, I confirmed. The other part is living within my means, not beyond them. Marcus stood abruptly. We don't have to listen to this. You're right, I agreed. You can leave any time. But before you do, I should mention that the bank called me yesterday. They noticed the account activity and the loan co-signing. They wanted to verify some information about your mortgage assistance request. Victoria grabbed Marcus's arm. What mortgage assistance request? The one Marcus submitted 3 weeks ago, I said, listing me as a financial guarantor without asking me first. The color drained from Marcus's face. I declined, obviously, I continued. I also asked the bank to remove me from all your accounts and notifications. I'm not your financial safety net anymore. You can't do that, Victoria said, panic creeping into her voice. We have payments due. Tyler's school tuition is next week. You'll figure it out, I said. Successful people with drive always do. Isn't that what you said? I stood gathering my bag. Emma closed her sketchbook and stood beside me. Emma, Victoria said desperately, I didn't mean what I said. You're a talented girl. Really? Thank you, Aunt Victoria, Emma said politely. As we walked toward the cafe door, I heard Marcus frantically talking to Victoria about credit cards and payment plans. Outside, Emma looked up at me. Mom, why didn't you ever tell Aunt Victoria to stop asking for money? Because family helps family, I said. But family also doesn't weaponize help to feel superior. There's a difference between supporting someone and enabling them to maintain a fantasy. Are we really not going to help them anymore? I didn't say that, I clarified. I said I'm not their automatic safety net. If they genuinely need help and ask respectfully, I'll consider it. But the days of them treating me like a failure while cashing my checks are over. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Can I ask you something? Always. Why do you live the way you do? If you make good money, why not a bigger apartment or a new car? I smiled. Because things don't make me happy. Security does. Knowing I can handle emergencies, save for your college, retire comfortably, and help people I care about without stress. That's worth more than impressing strangers. So Aunt Victoria isn't actually successful? Your aunt has successfully created an image of success, I said carefully. But image and reality are different things. Real success is sustainability. It's being able to maintain your lifestyle without depending on others or drowning in debt. We reached our Honda. Emma ran her hand along the door, tracing a small dent near the handle that had been there for 3 years. I used to be embarrassed by this car, she admitted. Tyler always made comments about it when you'd pick me up from their house. He'd say things like, "Is that thing even safe?" Or, "My dad says old cars are for people who can't manage money." And now I'm thinking about how many of Tyler's school tuition payments it represents. And how their fancy BMW is actually leased with money they don't have. I laughed, genuinely proud of her quick understanding. That's my analytical girl. You're learning to see past the surface. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with texts from Victoria. Apologies, excuses, requests to talk. I'd respond eventually, but not today. Today, Emma needed to process what she'd learned about success, family, and the difference between looking rich and being stable. Mom, Emma said as we pulled into our apartment complex parking lot. Yes, sweetie. I don't think I'm going to be a nobody. I parked the car and turned to face her. You never were going to be. Being somebody isn't about money or status. It's about knowing your worth and not needing others' validation to prove it. Emma smiled. Aunt Victoria needs a lot of validation. She does. And that's sad, really, because she's so busy trying to prove her worth to others that she can't see her actual value. We walked up to our second-floor apartment, the familiar creak of the third step greeting us. Inside, Emma immediately went to her art corner by the window, the space where the afternoon light hit perfectly for drawing, and pulled out her sketchbook. What are you drawing? I asked, setting my bag down and starting to prepare dinner. A reminder, she said, her pencil already moving across the page. About the difference between looking successful and being successful. I'm drawing 2 houses. One is huge and fancy but built on sand. The other is smaller but has a foundation made of stone. I watched her sketch, her young hands confident with the pencil, her artistic metaphor more insightful than she probably realized. Whatever she created in life would be built on truth, not image, on stability, not debt, on genuine accomplishment, not borrowed credibility. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus asking if we could forget this afternoon happened. I typed back a simple response. We can move forward when you're ready to be honest about where you are and respectful about where others are. Emma looked up. Was that Aunt Victoria? Uncle Marcus. Are you going to help them? Probably, I admitted. But on different terms. Terms that don't require me to accept disrespect as the price of family connection. Emma nodded and returned to her drawing. In that moment I knew she understood. Success wasn't about proving yourself to people who'd already decided to underestimate you. It was about building a life so secure that their opinions became irrelevant. And my daughter, the future nobody, was learning that lesson 12 years earlier than I had.